Welcome aboard. If you're watching this YouTube ranking video, then let me be the first to say, what the Sigma? You've opted to spend the next 20 to 30 minutes listening to an overweight, annoying, and usually wrong human being that lacks any form of charisma or good hygiene.
I can hear you!
Well, let's just say we got a big ranking for you SpongeBob fans out there.
Can I talk about SpongeBob Season 4 now?
No. Before you can...
Hey, dude, I actually need to get to the actual video. Attention spans get only shorter and shorter as the years go on.
Fine. Well, it's been 6 months since the Season 3 ranking, so it makes sense to finally hop into Season 4. Now, many fans like myself know that the series was supposed to end with 3 seasons and the beloved movie in 2004. But the show was a huge hit and saw several more seasons. However, Season 4 was the first season not to have Stephen Hillenburg on the writing team, and yeah, it kinda shows. Season 4 isn't nearly to the level of back-to-back amazing episodes like we saw in Seasons 1 through 3. However, I do think there were quite a few classic episodes in this season, including one of my all-time favorite episodes. Anyways, let's get to it. Number 38, All That Glitters. This episode was like a preface to the sheer annoyance of Season 6. Following SpongeBob breaking his spatula. And for this 11-minute episode, there's a good 6 of those minutes that's just SpongeBob crying. I will admit his weirdly out-of-place quote of "all that glitters is not gold" is at least somewhat funny. But other than that, this was an annoying episode and definitely the one I hated the most of Season 4. Number 37, Driven to Tears. Patrick has now become infamous as one of the most ruined characters in SpongeBob, and that arguably started with Season 4. And he's at his worst with Driven to Tears. This episode follows Patrick getting his driver's license, and I don't care who says what, Patrick was absolutely rubbing it in. Winning a boatmobile, mocking SpongeBob. SpongeBob tried to be a good friend, but Patrick kept being a dick. It made sense for him to crash out. The episode had 1 or 2 laughs, but other than that, a dark foreshadowing as to what Patrick would become.
Even Patrick has a license.
Number 36, SquidBob Tentacle Pants. This episode is gross, following Squidward and SpongeBob getting fused together thanks to Sandy's new invention. There's a couple of good laughs, but it doesn't make up for this gross-ass imagery. Seriously, that ending could qualify as body horror, alright? It's not funny enough to make up for an uncomfortable experience. Number 35, Once Bitten. Again, not a terrible episode, just an incredibly uncomfortable one. Gary is mistaken to have something called mad snail disease. The episode starts off with Gary leaving a slime trail, which is straight up unnecessary considering he has never had that shit before. And it gets worse when he bites Squidward and Patrick straight up gaslights everybody in Bikini Bottom. We should be mad at this pink asshole for causing mass hysteria. That's like if I made up a disease called...
That bite looks pretty serious. It could be a symptom of skibbity... I can't.
And especially the doctor being annoyed by everyone's freaking out. That's honestly my reaction. For my money, this ain't a good episode, but I guess we're getting closer to the mediocre stuff. Number 34, Rule of Dumb. Any episode that allows Patrick to be a dick is not a good episode. But this one gets over Driven to Tears as I felt it was a lot funnier. This episode follows Patrick becoming king of Bikini Bottom, and of course the power goes to his head. This episode has its share of funny moments, but letting Patrick be a dick just because on paper it's funny doesn't translate well. And for that, I just don't find this episode fun to watch.
I have to be honest. There's someone else.
Grandpa?
Number 33, The Thing. Don't you ever disrespect John Carpenter like that again. The Thing follows Squidward wanting to get away from Squidward and Patrick, but getting covered in cement, garbage, and all kinds of things that make him look like a monster. This episode falls under the category of Squidward torture, which are some of the worst episodes to watch. And while this isn't the worst it's gotten, it was a bad sign of things to come. Number 32, New Leaf. This episode follows Krabs not believing Plankton when he says he's turning a new leaf and is gonna stop trying to steal Krabs' formula. This episode is sort of mean and not in a good way. Krabs destroys Plankton's shop and it doesn't come off as anything more than Krabs being an asshole. Like, yeah, he was right and it was a trick by Plankton, but especially considering these two used to be friends, the way Krabs acts here is pretty mean and out of place. A little too mean for my taste. Number 31, Patrick Smartpants. Again, I just don't find the episodes where Patrick's allowed to be a dick funny. In this episode, Patrick loses his head, and SpongeBob accidentally replaces it with one where he gets a brain, making him intelligent. First of all, why is intelligence immediately translated to science? There's other ways to be intelligent, you know, like being a media review YouTuber. This episode has its moments, but Patrick is way too douchey. Number 30, Funny Pants. This one falls into the same category of being annoying, like All That Glitters. But where that episode was nothing but SpongeBob crying, this episode is nothing but SpongeBob laughing. Or more like he tries not to, as he's told a lie by Squidward that he can't lose his laugh box. I will say, I found the joke of him trying not to laugh, but Patrick just happens to slip on a comically placed banana peel. That got a laugh out of me. It's not overwhelming with SpongeBob laughing like his crying and all that glitters. I just didn't find this one that funny, which is quite the coincidence. Number 29, Crabs vs. Plankton. Similar to New Leaf, this one showcases a dickish side to Crabs that we have seen before, but it's almost petty. The episode follows Plankton suing Crabs after slipping on a puddle that had no wet floor sign. Man, he was faking it, but I wanted Plankton to win. Krabs is way too aggressive. I'm surprised he won. But man, I was laughing a bit, like when the lawyer slipped on the puddle because SpongeBob was just mopping right in front of a door. It's not overly mean like New Leaf, but I do find it just enough mean-spirited to keep it low.
It's open!
It's...
Number 28, Hocus Pocus. This episode isn't necessarily bad, just kinda there. Following SpongeBob getting a cheesy magic kit and believing he turned Squidward into an ice cream cone. This of course has the iconic kid crying over the pistachio bit.
But I don't like pistachio!
Then why did you ask for it?
But the rest is standard and a bit boring. The running joke of SpongeBob freaking out over Squidward being ice cream gets old quick. And Patrick was pissing me off here. Man, that's your friend, you peak Dorito. Stop eating him. Number 27, the Pink Purloiner. Similar to any of the other episodes where Patrick is a dick, the Pink Purloiner follows SpongeBob believing Patrick stole his net. This isn't nearly as bad, but SpongeBob acts out of line and so does Patrick. Honestly, it is pretty funny to see SpongeBob crash out over this stupid ass net. Other than that, not much on this one. Number 26, Wig Stuck. Kinda like Pink Purloiner, Wig Stuck just doesn't have much to it. Following SpongeBob becoming a laughingstock after getting a wig literally thrown right at him. Bikini Bottom's some pricks, bro. You mean these people don't have anything else going on in their lives where someone daring to wear a wig is the most interesting thing out here? Get hobbies! And how are you gonna tell me a wig was the big thing keeping this band from true greatness? This isn't the era of Kiss. If Metallica can be famous, so can Ned and the Needlefish, damn it. I wasn't loving this episode, but again, I guess it's passable. Number 25, Shell of a Man. I'm sorry, I do not like how Mr. Krabs looks without a shell. I get that's what they were going for, but just ew. This episode follows Krabs getting ready for his big reunion with the guys in the Navy, but he molts out of his shell. It is nice to see SpongeBob cares about his boss who don't give a fuck about him, but again, just not overly funny. Number 24, The Gift of Gum. Hold on, I just got, that's pretty funny. The Gift of Gum is probably the last truly mediocre episode, as we're getting more into the funnier stuff. Following SpongeBob with gum. Yeah, it's kind of the whole thing. It's just the gum spreads everywhere. This almost felt like filler. They just really needed one last episode in season 4. It's not terrible, just incredibly generic. Number 23, Born to be Wild. This episode follows SpongeBob and Patrick preparing themselves to defend Bikini Bottom from a biker gang that they heard was absolutely ruthless. It's got some decent jokes, but nothing terribly funny. I chuckled a couple times though. Number 22, Selling Out. This episode follows Krabs retiring and selling the Krusty Krab to a franchise that completely tarnishes the good name. I found so much in this pretty funny. The manager may look so innocent, but there's such a malice behind his eyes that's pretty funny. But yeah, the sight of the synthetic Krabby Patty is just really unpleasing to look at. Again, a pretty funny episode overall.
But it's the blood, sweat, and tears of a hard day's work. It's not about the money.
Number 21, Best Frenemies. Best Frenemies follows Krabs and Plankton teaming up after new competition with the Kelp Shake franchise comes into light. First of all, Wendy's did a damn pineapple Frosty for their Krabby Patty collab, but a Kelp Shake never came to mind. I would've gone ham on 10 of them bitches, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, maybe that's for the best considering how the episode ends, but seeing the different ways Plankton gets mutilated so they can get into the Kelp Shake and get their hands on the recipe, when all they had to do was buy one, is pretty funny in my opinion. And we're getting into the truly good episodes. Number 20, The Best Day Ever. I'll be honest, The Best Day Ever overall isn't the funniest episode, and I always found this song annoyingly catchy, but what saves it for me is the genuine love the main cast has for SpongeBob. It's nice to see that care that, let's just say, we're not gonna see much more of going forward. I didn't love it, but I see why others do. Number 19, Squidtastic Voyage. I do kind of see why this episode qualifies as Squidward torture, but I found this just a little funnier than the thing due to the always classic cartoon idea of going inside someone's body. Magic School Bus did it the best, but this is pretty good too. This episode follows SpongeBob and Patrick going inside of Squidward to get a reed dislodged from his throat. The episode is full of good slapstick that kind of reminds me of the season 2 to 3 humor that made those seasons so great. Number 18, Ghost Host. This episode at first seemed pretty forgettable, but it's charming enough. Following the Flying Dutchman crashing with SpongeBob while he gets his mojo back. The episode features SpongeBob crashing out, which is my forever favorite version of SpongeBob. That being said, it's also somewhat wholesome to see SpongeBob genuinely care and want to help the Flying Dutchman.
No, 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 no! Everyone!
Number 17, Whale of a Birthday. Pearl has always been one of my least favorite characters, but this episode has the iconic Boys Who Cry, a band who I swear could just be the Jonas Brothers. The episode sees Krabs trying to be cheap, but Pearl calling him out. It can be a tad annoying due to Pearl acting like a spoiled brat, but it gets plenty of good bits. Number 16, Bummer Vacation. This episode sees SpongeBob forced to take a vacation. Now, I'm gonna say it right now, as a guy who only got 4 days of vacation after 3 months of working, fuck SpongeBob for being so dedicated to working on his vacation. The episode sees SpongeBob going delusional towards Patrick, and honestly, I can't see this scene the same again. No, sorry, I have to do this real quick. SpongeBob, the fuck wrong with you?
I'm on that good cushion, that good cushion.
A good episode with some good jokes. Number 15, Karate Island. I don't like seeing SpongeBob being a dick as it's extremely out of character for him, but Karate Island showcases the creativity we saw the writers had in seasons 1 through 3, as this time he's given the title of King of Karate on Karate Island. Not only are the karate fights with Sandy incredibly creative, but I find it fucking hilarious this guy kidnapped this man just to make him invest in real estate. That's the real demon here. Karate Island had one gross moment that reminds me I haven't gotten to season 6 yet, but other than that, the episode is pretty good in my opinion. Number 14, Chimps Ahoy. Chimps Ahoy follows SpongeBob and Patrick trying to invent something to ensure Sandy stays in Bikini Bottom. Seeing the chimps in Bikini Bottom is so weird, but other than that, there's some pretty good jokes, and it's nice to see SpongeBob and Patrick care so much. A pretty decent episode with a good heart. Classic SpongeBob. Number 13, Enemy-in-Law. This episode follows Plankton dating Krabs' mother, which is the ultimate Call of Duty move. If I found out any of those 12-year-olds who called me racial slurs married my mother, I might just off myself. Enemy-in-Law is a pretty funny episode, with Krabs being adorably protective of his mother. It's also incredibly like Plankton to marry his enemy's mother just to get to his secrets. I mean it, destroy that puss 69. I'm coming after you if you even touch my mother. Number 12, Mrs. Puff, You're Fired. This one's classic, following Mrs. Puff being fired after it's determined that she couldn't teach SpongeBob. And such, the class gets a new instructor who is a lot more strict. Literally a military instructor. The episode has some seriously good laughs, and the instructor is so over the top it's hilarious. Definitely a classic.
Tell my wife I love her. Come!
Number 11, Good Neighbors. This episode follows SpongeBob and Patrick trying to be good neighbors for Squiddy. Of course, they're not very good at it, as this drives Squidward insane. Understandably, this episode could be seen as another Squidward torture episode, but it's not nearly as bad as The Thing or as gross as Squidtastic Voyage. And the house just walking away is a top 10 SpongeBob moment, and I won't settle for less. It's a decent episode just outside of our top 10.
I guess we aren't good neighbors after all.
Number 10, That's No Lady. Following Patrick thinking somebody wants him out of town, so he disguises himself as a lady, immediately winning over Squidward and Krabs. I'm starting to piece some things together here. This episode is pretty funny, having some really great visual gags and some great lines from Patrick. Number 9, Squidward. Following SpongeBob wanting to have fun with Squidward, but Squidward is a fucking adult and has no time for SpongeBob's BS. So SpongeBob makes a dummy version of Squiddy, which immediately wins over everyone. It's kind of funny seeing this one guy being such a hater. And for somebody to give a fucking wooden doll Squidward's fame is really funny. I like this one. Oh, check out the cake on Squid! Number 8, Wishing You Well. Following SpongeBob and Squidward digging a well, obviously a money-grabbing scheme for Krabs. The song here is really catchy and underrated in SpongeBob's catalog. And come on, some of these lines are classic. Definitely an underrated episode in my mind.
Mr. Krabs! No!
Well, where's your magic now? Oh, where am I?
Number 7, Fear of a Krabby Patty. The first episode of season 4, this episode follows SpongeBob, Squidward, and Krabs keeping the Krusty Krab open for 24 hours. This, of course, makes SpongeBob go insane as he starts to fear Krabby Patties. So he sees Plankton, who uses the opportunity to pretend to be a psychiatrist to get to Krabs' secret formula. The entire therapy session between Plankton and SpongeBob was a highlight of the season for me, and the episode itself is just so iconic. Truly a staple of season 4.
Piano.
Number 6, The Lost Mattress. This episode has Krabs having back issues and such, the trio of SpongeBob, Patrick, and out of nowhere Squidward get him a new mattress, unaware that Krabs' money was in that mattress. Such, they must get it back while Krabs is hospitalized. The episode is honestly the only justifiable form of Squidward torture in that he brings it on himself. And I gotta admit, the amount of shits this hospital gives for a dying patient just because of business is pretty funny. Number 5, Crusty Towers. This episode is classic, following Krabs converting the Krusty Krab into a hotel. There's some banger jokes here, and Squidward finally gets some well-needed revenge for all those torture episodes he faced. And hearing Krabs go insane over Squidward's ridiculous requests is honestly pretty funny.
Welcome to the Crusty Towers, where our motto is, come!
Oh, that's great.
Seriously, a great episode with killer jokes. My big reminder of season 1 through 3. Number 4, Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, the motion picture. As always, the Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy episode is one of the highlights of the season. Following SpongeBob wanting to make his own Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy movie after hearing the official one will be using actors. The episode is just funny with the classic SpongeBob crash out. As someone who films all of his bits on a phone camera, I am so glad I never used something with a camera lens. You would see me on an episode of 48 Hours for Snapped. As always, we keep the tradition of no bad Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy episodes, and I'm grateful for that.
No, I didn't want to lose it, so I put it there right before we started filming.
Number 3, Dunces and Dragons. One of the 2 special episodes this season. Get used to a lot more. Season 6 has like half the season as special episodes. This episode is a classic medieval episode and follows SpongeBob and Patrick going on a quest to save Princess Pearl. It's kind of cool to see this alternate timeline of how everyone translates to medieval times. Squidward being a jester makes sense. Krabs being a king is kind of weird considering the movie set up that Neptune is the king of the universe regardless, but whatever the case, it's a funny episode for sure. Number 2, Skill Crane. Easily my favorite funny episode. I was dying at this stuff. Krabs installs a crane machine into the Krusty Krab, and Squidward doesn't seem to care until SpongeBob wins immediately. He tries and tries, but just can't. And honestly, for as composed as Squidward can be, it is hilarious seeing him lose his shit at this thing. It's kind of like me in the casino. The episode is chock full of laughs and is definitely my favorite in terms of humor. But I think my number 1 of season 4 was already set out from day 1.
Just once!
Number 1, have you seen the snail? Come on, this is probably the most cinematic special SpongeBob has ever done. Following SpongeBob neglecting Gary and Gary running away. The episode is honestly heartbreaking, and unlike All That Glitters or Hocus Pocus, SpongeBob crying is actually emotional and not just annoying or overwhelming within the episode. And Gary Come Home just might be my second favorite SpongeBob song behind Sweet Victory. This episode is proof that no matter how many seasons we see happen in the future, there's always at least 1 or 2 writers who care about this show. Even years after his passing, Hillenburg's spirit lives on with the writers who genuinely want the show to succeed. While I, alongside many, would rather just see the show end, if those writers keep up the good work, what's the harm in a little more SpongeBob? Just not Camp Coral, fuck that show. And now, you are ready to take your spot in YouTube history. Are you ready for the success that comes with being a YouTuber? Are you sure?
Yes, fuck!
Alright, the secret to being a successful content creator is...